All right, today we are diving headfirst into a political firestorm that basically brought India's parliament to a screeching halt. It's a story full of furious accusations, old rivalries, and it all revolves around one single three-letter acronym that had everybody shouting. Let's get right into it.
So, it all just exploded with this incredibly sharp line from Home Minister Amit Shah aimed squarely at the opposition. You can just feel the tension in that sentence, can't you? He was making it crystal clear. The government sets the agenda, not the opposition. This wasn't a conversation. It was a line drawn in the sand.
And the comeback from opposition leader Rahul Gandhi? Just as direct, just as confrontational. He basically threw down the gauntlet, challenging the Home Minister to a public debate on the very things the opposition felt the government was trying to ignore. And right there, that's the central clash we're going to unpack.
Okay, so to make sense of this whole mess, we're going to break it down. We'll start with the chaos in Parliament, then we'll define what this whole "sir" controversy is actually about. We'll hear the accusations from the opposition, the counterattack from the government, and then we'll look at what else was actually going on behind all the shouting. So let's set the scene. We're in the middle of Parliament's winter session. There are all these critical laws and issues that need to be discussed, but the whole place is just completely consumed by this one massive political battle. The atmosphere was described as being in a fierce heat. I mean, tempers were flaring, and actual legislative work was basically grinding to a halt. So what is this fight actually about? Well, it all boils down to a process with the acronym SIR. The opposition has kind of turned this respectable-sounding word, SIR, into a weapon against the government. But what does it even stand for? So SIR stands for Systematic Identification and Review. Now, on paper, that sounds pretty boring, right? It's just a bureaucratic process for cleaning up the list of registered voters. But the opposition sees something way, way more sinister here. They believe it's a deliberate strategy to kick legitimate voters off the rolls, which could, completely change the outcome of a major election. And look, the opposition's case isn't just some vague feeling of unfairness. They are leveling some very specific charges. We're talking about claims of mass deletions of actual voters, allegations that minority and marginalized communities are being specifically targeted, that government machinery is being misused, and, this is the big one, that the Election Commission itself, the one body that's supposed to be a neutral referee, is actually biased. So let's look at how the opposition built this case into a full-blown assault. They started using really powerful language, things like vote theft and even anti-national act, arguing that the very foundation of India's democracy is crumbling. And this wasn't just one person speaking. It was a coordinated attack from all sides. You had K.C. Venugopal calling it a threat to the nation itself. Dimple Yadav gave these specific, vivid examples of police misconduct in state elections. Papu Yadav put a jaw-dropping number on it, 6.9 million voters removed in just one state. And then Asadin Awasi made this really crucial legal point, that this whole process flips democracy on its head by forcing citizens to prove they have the right to vote instead of the other way around. This quote really just nails the opposition's whole vibe. A Trinamool Congress MP, Shatabdi Roy, used this amazing analogy. She said, the government has taken this word of respect, sir, and turned it into something people are afraid of, comparing it to Gabbar Singh, who is like one of the most famous, most terrifying villains in Bollywood history. That really lands. Okay, so how do you even respond to a barrage of accusations like that? Well, the government's strategy was pretty clear. First, deflect by digging into the opposition's own past. And second, reframe this entire protest as just another example of the opposition trying to cause chaos. And here's where the government's strategy really clicks into place. When the opposition accused them of weakening democratic institutions, senior BJP leader Ravi Shankar Prasad didn't really defend what's happening now. Instead, he immediately attacked the past. He brought up the 1975 emergency, times when Supreme Court judges were superseded. His message was basically, you think we're bad, you did worse. And Home Minister Amit Shah, well, he took that trip down memory lane even further. First, he went all the way back to India's very first prime minister, claiming Jawaharlal Nehru took the job undemocratically. Then, he made this very personal allegation against the former Congress president Sonia Gandhi, claiming she was a registered voter before she was even a citizen. It's a classic move, right? Change the topic from what you're doing to what your opponent did years ago. And to complete that counter-narrative, BJP MP Kangana Rana painted the opposition's protests not as genuine dissent but as pure theater.
She actually called her first year in parliament traumatic and accused the opposition of creating a daily tamasha, a spectacle, that was just meant to stop any real work from getting done.
So eventually the whole thing reached a breaking point. After all the back and forth, the yelling, the accusations, the opposition parties just got up and staged a mass walkout. And of course, the ruling party jumped on that immediately, claiming they were just running away because they couldn't handle the truth. Now, it's really easy to think that when a fight like this breaks out, nothing else is happening in Parliament. But believe it or not, the wheels of government do keep turning, even if it's in the background. So let's take a quick look beyond that shouting match.
This is such an important question to ask, you know? Did this one political feud just suck all the air out of the room for the entire session? Or was other, maybe less dramatic, but just as important stuff still getting done? Well, the answer is yes. So while the headlines were all about the Sir debate, other MPs were raising these really critical, citizen-focused issues. Away from all the noise, there were these vital discussions happening about mental health centers for women, about getting digital labs into rural schools, about protecting fishermen. I mean, these are the issues that directly impact people's lives, but they get totally lost in the fog of political war.
And all of this leaves us with one last, really crucial question. In these high-stakes, televised fights, yeah, political parties score points against each other. But what's the real cost? When debate turns into a spectacle and walking out becomes a strategy, who actually wins? And maybe more importantly, with so many urgent issues on the table, who's the one that ultimately loses?